I'll start with an introduction. My name is Glenn Song, and currently I'm working on adding digital signatures to HDF5, specifically adding support for digitally signed plugins to HDF5. Um, so let me get started. Oh, are there any questions about HDF5 in general that people have, or am I good to go?
Like you're good to go.
Okay, sure. I'll start. So I guess I'll start with a very basic, what are plugins? So plugins are extensions that greatly enhance HDF5's functionality. So you have things like filter plugins, which can add um, things like BLASK, LZ4, etc. You can use virtual file drivers, VFDs, via plugins. So then some examples are Sec2, the core VFD. You can also use Vault connectors or as a plugin. So some popular ones include the async Vault connector, the cache Vault, the log Vault, etc. And so then I will also define what are digital signatures. So digital signatures are, so in this case, what this means is an encryption tool is selected to generate a key pair consisting of private and public keys that are used to sign a plugin. So this will generate a detached signature file that the user will distribute together with the plugin, um, as together with their public key. And so using the compiled library file and the public key, as well as the signature file, the plugin can be verified to be the most up-to-date version that the creator has put out into the world. And so this means that you can verify not only the plugin itself, but also verify that it comes from a reputable source. So why would you add digital signatures to plugins? Well, currently there's no security system created for plugins. This does mean that anyone could come in and distribute bad plugins that could corrupt data, steal data, or even introduce vulnerabilities. But even if there wasn't the problem of um, creating and distributing bad plugins, even if there were mistakes in any new versions of plugins, etc. If people wanted to keep people using the most up-to-date version of their plugin, all of these are reasons why you might want to add digital signatures to plugins. Um, this basically adding an option to take or even require digital signatures introduces a security system to plugins that can help users feel more secure. So how exactly will this work? Currently, as I mentioned earlier, an encryption tool will be selected. Currently, we have selected GPG, which is the GNU Privacy Guard for this task. There were other encryption tools and libraries that were considered, such as like libsodium, um, libtomcrypt, Bouncy Castle. There's a few others, but ultimately those were discarded in favor of GPG just because it was the most widely used. It works on many platforms such as Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. It's free and open source, so changes can be made if necessary. And GPG also makes it easy to swap between multiple keys for people that are signing their own plugins. So there's several reasons why we pick GPG. Down the line, if anything goes wrong, the other options can still be explored in case it's necessary. But so here, primarily, we'll be talking about GPG and GPG-ME, which is GPG made easy. It's a library that allows GPG to be used programmatically. So GPG is completely command line based. There's no graphical interface, but also it requires GPG-ME in order for it to work within HDF5. So we will be adding the new code to mostly to H5PL. And so if defs will be added around the new code to toggle the functionality. We'll be adding a new build option and environment variables. So the new build option will be HDF5 require signed plugins. And so it'll default off so that it's not too disruptive. But we've also um, we're also going to be adding security levels so that it is easier for users. So there's going to be three, let me see here. There's going to be three security levels. So when the security level is turned to high, this means that users can only use signed and like correctly verified plugins. So this is for users who are, very interested in this new feature, who are worried about security risks and such. There's Medium, where users can use signed, but they don't have to verify plugins. And so this is obviously a little less secure, but what this means is that in case there are newer versions of plugins that are distributed, in case there are people who uh, like are not that have like reasonable trust in the plugin source, they can use Medium so that it is not quite as strict. And low or off, in this case, users can continue to use unsigned and signed plugins, and it doesn't have any of the verification features. So, exactly what are the proposed changes? So I mentioned there's going to be changes to H5PL code, and so it'll change a little bit how the process of loading a plugin works. So when a plugin is available and trying to be used, as before, it'll first check if a plugin is available using H5Z filter avail. It'll try to load the plugin using H5PL load. I've written filter here, but that's wrong. Sorry. Wall connectors, VFDs, and filter plugins all will use H5PL load. Here, it'll first search for the plugin using H5PL find plugin in cache and H5PL find plugin in path table. When it tries to open the plugin, it'll call H5PL open, and so here it will insert the new code. It will check if the option to require digital signatures is on, and if that option is on, it will check if the signature is valid using the H5PL GPG verify signature. If the option is off, or if it's not necessary, then everything will work as it did in the past. So, oh yeah, like I said, changes will be made to CMake plugins, CMake to add the new build option, and the rest of the changes will mostly be in H5PL code. Oh, I didn't have more slides, but I think that is everything I wanted to talk about. Are there any questions about it?
Yes, this Lena. Thank you for nice RFC and nice slides. Could you please, maybe I missed, said this, but I missed it. How do you define verified plugin? Just plugin that has a signature file or how?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. Let me explain further. So, a verified plugin, so it'll when it tries to verify a plugin, that's when it'll use the like SO file, as I mentioned earlier. It'll use the SO file in combination with the signature file that the that the plugin creator distributed along with their plugin. And using those two things, it'll verify that uh, basically that this was signed by the user. And then also it'll use the public key. So it one verifies that the plugin is the one that the user, or sorry, that the plugin creator distributed, but also it verifies the identity of the plugin creator.
Thank you, but this kind of, sorry, playing devil's advocate, but malicious plugin can have signature file and then will be verified and happily loaded. So maybe there should be more definition for this, like some testing code or something, because really malicious plugin can be verified then.
Oh yeah, sorry. Sorry. So I actually have not mentioned. So yeah, so that's something we have considered. We're talking about, so there has to be some central authority for, as you said, like verifying that these things are like putting correct and verified plugins in a place such where it is like governed by some central authority, such that you can, I guess, like the trust in the central authority um uh, allows that to, I guess, like, be verified. Sorry if I'm not making any sense.
No, no, I see, and it is in your RFC, but it
Yes.
still does not. What I'm trying to say that it's probably even authority is not enough because someone has to check the code that it's not malicious. But this is aside. May I ask second question, and I will stop. Can I use verified plugin with the software that where verification is turned off?
Can you use a verified plugin with a software where it's turned off? Yes, that should be possible. That will be. Sorry, do you mean that, can you use a plugin that has been signed, in
Right, so I download sign plugin from HDF Group website or whatever, from whatever distributed authority will be, but software installed on the system that I'm
Yeah.
using is compiled with verification turned off.
Yes, that should be possible.
Okay, thank you.
So if you go back to your 2 slides, the flow chart.
Yes.
So the last box there, check if signature is valid. That means a handshake, right? Or call back to the trusted source, essentially, to make
Uh,
sure that, is that right? Can you,
yes, so yeah, so I can talk a little bit further about exactly what is happening, when for the plugin creator when this feature is introduced. So the plugin creator, as before, will develop their plugin, but once they're finished, they will create a key in GPG and use that to sign the plugin. And so that creates a detached signature file. So that's a separate signature file, um, that they will upload together with the plugin. So in this case, the developer will now, on top of the plugin, have to provide the plugin ID, which, was required before, but now also the new detached signature file and the public key. And these things are passed on to, the central authority, whatever that is. And so when this, HYPL GPG verify signature is called, that's when the signature, to, I guess, like, verify that this version of the plugin is the verified version. That's where, that, like, handshake will occur, and also it then, will check against that the public key is correct as well.
Mhm. I'm just trying to think if you have a batch job and it's running on a node, I'm not sure that always has, I mean, obviously it checks at runtime.
Right.
I'm not sure if that has internet access at that point when you're running on a node,
I
for
see.
example.
Are you sure you cannot use local copy? You need handshake for this?
I think well, you'd have to have a trusted source locally, right? So the facilities, I think, can make it available when you load the module for HDF5, and then you also load the module for the filter. So I think they'd also have to then handle that,
Yeah,
right?
should be some way to like pre-authorize a bunch.
Hmm.
I thought that you just need signature file. But it's not what you're saying is not enough. It should go somewhere and check using that signature file. That plugin is from that source. That's what
Yes.
I'm saying.
So when you sign the plugin, so that creates a signature file, which is the plugin at that, in that current state. And so the signature file basically verifies that it is in the same state after you've, gotten the plugin that, the plugin creator, like, released it in. And then the public key then verifies that this is also from, the right person that you're expecting it to be from as well.
Yeah. Maybe there's another step we could add in here that said, not only is this signature valid for this plugin, so we know the plugin hasn't been tampered with, but if there was an additional signature from a known authority, the HDF Group or a facility that said, and this one is okay to run, something like that. So therefore, you wouldn't need to reach out over the internet. You could just sign them from a authority that granted the permission to run it as well.
Hmm.
That would probably allow the batch stuff to work correctly.
I see.
Well, it's all have to be checked, right? So at least prototype. Have you guys created a prototype of this? Or not
Yeah.
yet?
Yeah, so I've been working on a test branch. Currently it works, the option is added and it currently works. It'll just check in, it's very basic, but there is a very rough prototype that is not finished.
But please forgive my ignorance. So if I create a plugin and there is a SO file, and then I sign it, does running through signing the SO file changes SO file?
No,
Yeah, the answer probably is no, right?
the answer has to be no. Yes,
So it's the same as O file.
sure. That's why Glenn has been saying it's a detached signature file that accompanies the .so.
Yeah, so there are other ways of signing where it can encrypt it, but
Yeah,
we want that. Sorry?
right. But we're not encrypting here a SO file here.
Yeah.
Oh, and another question: will user be able overrun settings with which library was compiled? For example, it was compiled with strong, whatever it is, how you call it, strong verification.
Oh,
High option. Will they be able to turn it off with environment variable so plugin is not tested?
yeah, so the current idea is that the build option will be the floor. So whatever the build option is, whether that is like off, medium, or high, right? That will be the floor. And if you want to raise it with the environment variable, you can, but you will never be able to lower it past what it was built with.
You can low, but you cannot go higher. Okay.
No, the other way.
The other way around.
If the facility requires it to be signed and sets it to high, you have no choice.
But if I'm developing my own plugin on that system,
Then you should build your own version of HDF5.
okay.
So I have a question. So in the case of a compression plugin, for instance, you would typically have a plugin that's sort of the interface between HDF5 and the actual compression codec itself.
Right.
So would you then have to embed the compression plugin, the codec itself with the plugin and sign both essentially, or could those be separate?
Um,
Interesting secondary problem.
yeah, I'm not quite sure. Haven't considered that yet.
But isn't the same because usually plugins are linked with version of HDF5 library? How
No, we want them to be dynamic, of course. And
right, but now that you have to link with them, and this is a problem that was not addressed.
well, no, I think Peter is saying, and your plugin uses an installed library on the system. How can you validate that that installed library hasn't been tampered with? Am I
Right.
correct, Peter?
Yep.
Yeah, and this is a known vulnerability, exactly.
I don't know that we certainly haven't considered that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that is.
You almost have to have it built when you built your filter wrappers as a static link into this library instead of an also dynamic library. So if you had like ZFP, for example, right? We have H5Z ZFP, which uses it. You could build H5Z ZFP with in static for the ZFP library. I don't know how you would do it. You'd have to, I guess you'd have to just have a signature for the ZFP as well then.
Well, if you link it into the .so, then that's fine. You know,
Right.
you just validate the .so and we're cool.
Right.
Right.
But if you don't, then you'll have to have a signature of, I guess, the one it also uses.
Yeah, but that's an infinite regression, right?
Yeah, because how do you know that?
Yeah.
It's almost you have to trust
There has to be some level where you stop.
And you may have more complex dependencies like walls have, right? Like Mercury library or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not too sure for the complex case yet. We haven't considered that yet.
Excellent feedback.
Yeah.
And would
Yeah, I
it
guess.
be the plugin author's responsibility to sign the SO that gets generated, right? I mean, I have no control over what facilities might do, for instance, in terms of installing ZFP.
Right.
Or maybe
Yes.
I'm just totally
Whoever
misunderstanding
does the
how it's supposed to
install
work.
has to sign it. Right.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I was just saying, whoever does the install is going to have to be the one. Maybe that's not quite true. I mean, there could be authoritative copies somewhere with, you know, in a secure-ish location, whether it's a download from the HDF group or the facility provides one or whatever that says, yes, these ones we validated, here's their signatures, you're good to go. Or else if you build it from source, that's up to you.
Oh, so you would actually have a downloadable binary, is what you're saying.
There's nothing, I mean, that's certainly valid for popular platforms. I mean, you're not going to hit wacky, obscure stuff. But it also put the burden on the distribution channel.
Right. It gets more complicated, I guess, in the Linux world with different compilers and different versions, and you know.
Yeah, that's the kind of
Yeah.
broad problem.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's certainly quite possible that different users will have their own, you know, ways of verifying these things. So we just want to provide the machinery and make it flexible enough that users can choose, key authorities that they see fit.
Yeah, and this is going to be a version 1. It'll be a version 2, probably.
I have to specify what is guaranteed with the version 1 and what needs to be done future. Yeah.
I think you can probably only guarantee the stuff that's built in statically, right? That you have.
Right.
Because obviously, I think people would be interested not necessarily in the plugin wrappers per se, but the actual compressions. That's the key, right? That you don't want corrupted. Really, not the. It's probably not going to be as important to do the wrappers, the wrapper part that makes it a HDF5 plugin, but the actual source is what you really are targeting to not be corrupt in the actual filter. I mean, for now, I think version 1 would just have to have limitations that you have to build your compression filter wrapper to be to meet certain criteria to guarantee security. Otherwise, no. And then version 2, I guess, could address that later one.
So I'm going to throw out a thought, which you may or may not like. As I understand it, the objective is to allow facilities to ensure that only plugins that they approve of are used with their build.
No.
Not quite? Okay. What have I missed?
Well, I believe the important thing we're trying to ensure is that there aren't any malicious modifications made to plugins.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that the same thing for a facility?
No, facility could just bless a bunch of stuff and that's that. There's no signature required,
Mm-hmm.
thing like that. What we're trying to do is ensure a supply chain that says we are certain that this one hasn't been modified since it was generated in the official place. It doesn't have anything to do with the facility. You could download it and run it on your laptop and get the same benefit.
Mm-hmm. Anywho, what I'm wondering about is I can see from listening to the discussion is there are all sorts of interesting gotchas and nothing to say that this can't be ironed out, but maybe some sort of a mud simple approach of allowing the facility or whoever to bless a set of plugins and say, yes, these are okay, and force the library to use only those plugins as a way around any problems as you're continuing to work this out.
I think that is a potential component, but not the direct target. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that once this gets released, there'll be a bunch of hackers trying to, they'll give us plenty of feedback about where we went wrong. I think that's just the world of security.
Yeah, we had to be clear about the disclaimers and the guarantees, at least a few of them, and yeah.
But how you imagine this central repo, whatever it is, who will take care of it and authorize its repo? Because for so many years we have arguments about existing not signed filters.
Yeah, I think we're still trying to figure that out at the moment.
It's probably nice to have this, but it looks like without, many details I may be missing. I'm sure I'm missing, but it looks like very rigid. And for users, if I really worry about security, I will encrypt my file if I transfer or decrypt it on another system, and don't believe any other third parties. So it's kind of more trouble than really benefit to the users.
There's many different components to security.
Yeah, and security pretty much always brings headaches. I mean, it's very rare that it's transparent when you start to get into importance of security, that it's not going to form some kind of inconvenience.
But you see, I go back to my initial question. I can sign malicious plugin. And
Well, I know, but you have to, yeah, we have to have a trusted source, right? At some point, you have to trust somebody.
So I think the advantage of this type of, so if you go to a simple approach, then you have to have an absolutely trusted source, and that absolutely, 100% trusted source has to distribute all the code and everything. Whereas in this one, all it has to distribute is a public key for anyone that the trusted source has verified as trustable, right? So it just reduces the burden on that single, single point of has to have the you have to have the highest security on the single either key authority or just a download server that you just has to the only place that you can get get your code from, I guess. Does that make sense? It sort of reduces the size of the central authority.
Yeah, that's a good benefit.
Just as an observation, to a certain extent, isn't this trying to turn the HDF5 library into trusted system software?
I think my comment earlier was that I mean, it's up for discussion, but we want to provide the machinery for HDF5 to be able to handle this public key in signature scheme, but it'll be up to at least initially up to users to decide on their own public key authorities. So that HDF5 won't actually be verifying anything. It'll just provide the mechanisms that user can use to verify things.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something of a stretch with the existing library. Well,
we're assuming that there are going to be some protocols around, right, this security feature that people have to come up with on top of what we provide.
Got the source code. If you get in there and like build their own version that had all this stripped out and accepted any key, then they could go shoot themselves.
Well, yeah, that was the other comment that do we need to start signing the library itself?
Mm-hmm.
I think we should. I mean,
Yeah.
For the common platforms where it's downloaded as a binary.
And the source,
work our way
frankly.
back up. Sorry.
And the source, frankly. Nobody's going to go through and manually check the source.
Yeah, but that's easy with a Git hash. That's no problem. Then we got to work our way back, or at least start talking to the package managers and saying, hey, you know what? How do we do our supply chain backup through you guys as well? Because they're grabbing binaries and throwing them around for the users.
So all this comes down to a rather large effort. You're talking about biting off and trying. It's certainly one that needs to be addressed one way or t'other in this day and age, but yeah.
Maybe
need to think about what you're biting off.
Yeah, so to set the context, this is a project called Securing Self-Describing Data Formats. It's a research project funded by NSF, and what we told them is that, okay, there are libraries that have been there for 25 years. How do we add cybersecurity if we want to, so that we can build different system or more build a process for building new libraries? So that's the effort. So in that sense, yeah, it's not solving the entire problem, but understanding how to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm. Good, that context is useful, as I was viewing it somewhat differently from having worked in the secure operating system world for years.
So good luck with the project. So nice project.
Yeah, it's a great project. I think there are different aspects of it, and this is one part of it, but there are others that are focusing more on how to fuzz these systems much more efficiently using the AI tools and all those. Yeah, it's a fun project. So
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we're about out of time. Any?
Oh, one more question. Do you have real users who are offering to try this? Or try your solution? Because unless you have someone trying, you will not get really good feedback. Have you identified any organization or application?
I did bring it up to, I did say we were going to introduce some compression into CGNS, and there was people interested in security when that gets introduced.
Uh-huh.
But other than that, no, we haven't did community outreach. I mean, this is part of the RFC, right? Is to get community feedback and then possible users. So I think once we get it publicized, hopefully we'll find users for it.
And I suppose just one other thought. It's an area I haven't thought about for years, so take it for whatever it's worth. Be useful to sit and think what part of this problem should be handled by the library proper and what part is better handled by the underlying operating system.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, do you mind elaborating for that, please?
Yeah. So you have the problem in this case of your plugins, and they need to be verified. And this is a common problem. And one could argue that for your average library, and there are going to be lots of different pieces of software which want to manage plugins, perhaps this problem of maintaining verified versions of plugins and ensuring that libraries are using the verified versions of the plugins could be either fully or partially offloaded to the operating system or associated trusted system software. I'm not going to tell you what portion of that, if any, it should be done, but I think it's something one should consider.
So it can be a thin layer between, say, HDF5 library and plugin that HDF5 library calls, and that layer verifies. And then it's not only plugins, but any SO it's trying to load.
So yes, for example,
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine the operating system software constraining where or what plugins a particular library could use.
Is there already a mechanism in place, like for the Linux kernel, that does that type of thing, or is this completely new?
I can think that some of the compartmentalized operating system could be applied there. In fact, it might be a reasonable application for partition directories or something like that. So in essence, the library would be tagged with a particular, well, we used to call them oh, what was it? It's ages ago. Clearance level or whatnot, and depending on your clearance level, you see different things in a directory. And that might be a way of using a compartmentalized operating system to force a particular library to use a particular set of plugins. Now, again, I haven't messed with this end of the world for a decade or two now, but there are various facilities which can be used. And I think some of this went into secure versions of Linux. At least the company I used to work for got very annoyed when a lot of the security enhancements that they had developed for Unix got pushed into open source Linux, or at least so I vaguely recall. I haven't looked at this stuff, of course.
Well, it's at least something to explore.
Yeah.
Mhm. All right, I think we're out of time.
And if you need some pointers, we can talk about it. As I said, it's been ages, and I would have to sit and dredge my memory for the names of the various standards on this sort of thing. But I may be able to help out.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll get that RFC officially posted. And of course, we'll save and post this recording. So thank you, everyone, for your feedback. Thanks, Glenn, for presenting today. And we'll see everyone back for the next Call the Doctor next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.